I'll ask Katie.
Cause that's like the master control
Yeah.
one, right?
I should know because I've done this so many times. Jim, Jim, do you know if both of my lights should be on?
That's it in front of you.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, just the right.
just the right.
That one I think is the ability to shut everybody off, so.
Ooh.
Still turn them on.
No, I don't want to do that. I'm not doing that.
No, it won't break anything. So I'm on, you're on. Let's, Michael, turn on. Get somebody else to turn on so we get a.
We're wondering about the button.
Both lights don't have to be on. I should know by now.
One button is your light and the button turns off.
You're right. Yeah,
Right,
we're not going to do, I don't want to.
No, we tested it. We want to see you do it.
I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. Okay. Okay. We're just testing microphones, everyone. So welcome, everyone. We're back. It is Thursday, September the 11th, 2025, and we'll call this meeting of the Planning and Heritage Advisory Committees to order. So we'll start with, where's my agenda? Attendance, as always.
Mayor Zabian,
Present.
Councillor Leary Pinch,
Present.
Councillor Ivy,
Present.
Tim Carr,
I'm here.
Jane Davis,
Present.
Guido Furlani,
I'm here.
KJ Conyers Steve,
Present.
Michelle Bourgeois,
Present.
and we have regrets from Marquio.
Thank you. A few announcements as usual. So West Hants Regional Municipality acknowledges that we are in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people, and that this land is governed by the treaties of peace and friendship signed in 1726. West Hants Regional Municipality recognizes that we are all treaty people and have responsibilities to this land and each other. West Hants Regional Municipality recognizes African Nova Scotians are a distinct people whose histories, legacies, and contributions have enriched that part of Mi'kma'ki known as Nova Scotia for over 400 years. We acknowledge the historic and ongoing racism against these communities and are committed to mending our relationship by listening, learning, and recognizing our wrongs. Council and I, as a member of the public and chair of this committee, are committed to ensuring this meeting and its participants conduct themselves in a respectful and professional manner as outlined in the municipality's municipal code of conduct. Meeting presenters, staff, and the public are expected to always conduct themselves in an equally respectful manner while the meeting is being conducted. I thank you all in advance for your commitment to these important meeting principles. So we're reminded to lean forward if we can and speak into our microphones. We're being recorded, so there's no need for anyone. And actually, it's requested that we don't record or use our personal devices to record this meeting. And if there's an emergency, the muster station is to my left, on the east side of the building in the staff parking lot. So we'll meet there, and I will make sure that the building is empty if an emergency happens. I have a couple of quick announcements that I just want to make. Of course, if you've driven through Windsor, you know that the Hants County exhibition is gearing up for this weekend and next weekend, so be sure to attend. The Garlic Fest is happening in downtown Windsor on Saturday as well, and the community of Hantsport is having their community-wide yard sale. So I think there's a lot to do on especially Saturday, but the weekend in itself. Does anyone else have anything you'd like to share about your community, something else that might be happening? No? I see no lights. Okay, so we'll move on. So our agenda is a little bit different. I know that the package had included sort of the things that have been scored out here on the agenda that you probably grabbed when you came in. So yeah, our meeting as a consequence will probably be a little bit shorter than I think intended. So our agenda is a little bit reduced. So I'm just, if nobody has a problem with that, I don't think that we need a motion to approve the agenda. Does anyone have a question or comment about that? No? Okay. So does anyone have a declaration of conflict of interest? Any of the things we're going to talk about? Hit home or a little too personal? No? Okay. So we are going to move on to the approval of the minutes from July 10th, our last meeting, which were circulated shortly after that meeting. Guido, would you like to make a motion to approve those?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. And we'll get a seconder as well, just in case. Michelle, thanks. And for the sake of purpose, all those in favor of approval of minutes, just a quick raise of your hands, if that's good. Okay, that's passed. So we will move on to new business. And I know that Well, I'm just going to go with the agenda that's kind of in front of me, the one that has the scores on it. So we'll go to 8.1, which is file number 25-15. It's a development agreement for King Street in Windsor, and Planner Hong is going to take this one for us. Go ahead, Will.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So this application is regarding the development agreement for PID number 45053220 on King Street in Windsor. So this application came in a little while ago on April 3rd this year from Upland Planning and Design Studio on behalf of Pinnacle Construction Limited. And their request was a 72-unit apartment building by development agreement. And the subject lot is located on King Street, and it is owned by the province. And the background is that the developer initially submitted their proposal through the provincial land for housing program, which I will explain in detail on my later slide. And here is the ortho photo for the subject lot. And I will note that this ortho photo is quite outdated, which still shows the previous building on the lot. However, the property is actually currently sitting vacant, and the property is also with approximately 1.67 acre in size, and the surrounding properties include a mixed forms of housing like single unit and medium density housing and existing apartment building across the street, as well as institutional use on the back on the rear side of the property for the Dykeland Lodge long-term care facility, and there are also some commercial activities in the surrounding neighborhood. So this slide presents the generalized future land use map from the Windsor Municipal Planning Strategy. And so as you can see, along with most surrounding properties, the property is designated as residential. And this image shows the current zoning for the lot, which shows it's zoned general commercial, and it generally allows a variety of commercial uses such as art studios, banks, and financial institution, and so forth. And here are some pictures taken in June during the site visit. The picture shows the subject lot from King Street, and you can find the existing driveway on the right-hand side, and you can see the land slopes upward toward the rear of the property. And here's another picture shows the rear of the property. And here are some context for the surrounding neighborhood, which again features a mix of low to medium density housing along with some commercial businesses. So before I dive into the proposal, I think it is really important for me to explain this provincial program to this committee first. So the Nova Scotia Land for Housing program was launched in 2022, in the midst of housing affordability crisis back then. And basically what this program means is to provide provincial surplus land that could be used to build housing and sell them at a discounted price to private developers or nonprofit developers in exchange of including certain percentage of units being affordable housing. So in this case, private developer like Pinnacle Construction submitted their proposal and the province reviewed their idea. And if the province feels it aligns with their intention of the program, they will give them preliminary approval. And as of 2024, there are 12 proposals have been approved across the province, unlocking approximately 550 affordable housing units. And I will also note this is the first application our municipality received under this provincial land for housing program. So move into the proposal detail. The proposal in front of us tonight is an apartment building with 72 dwelling units, and the building is 4-story above grade with 1 additional basement level. There will be surface parking with 72 parking space, and there will be landscaping along the property lines, and the driveway entrance will be through the King Street as shown by the blue arrows. And the proposal also includes outdoor recreation space located both front and the rear of the property. So again, the request was a development agreement, and it's essentially a legal contract between the municipality and the property owner to permit a use that is not usually permitted in the underlying zone. And the request for development agreements are measured against the policy of our municipal planning strategy. So in this case, it is the Windsor municipal planning strategy we are looking at. And because of this application was received before the official of Housing Accelerate Fund amendments in May, so this application is evaluated against the formal Windsor municipal planning strategy. But in general, the policy are remain pretty much the same. So looking at the enabling policy, Windsor Municipal Planning Strategy is the overarching document that we look at, and specifically part 4.18 of the MPS contains Council's general intention for housing development in Windsor planning area, with an emphasis on encouraging affordable housing as per policy 4.18.1. And policy 5.4.6 provides council with the ability to consider multiple unit residential dwellings of 3 units or more in the residential designation by development agreement, subject to the specific criteria outlined in my staff report. And also last but not the least is the policy 16.3.1, which is the general criteria in considering every development agreement. So staff have reviewed the proposal in relation to all applicable policies and are of opinion that the proposal is reasonably consistent with the intent of the Windsor Municipal Planning Strategy. And you can also find my policy analysis from the attachment A and B of my staff report in detail. So go over with the draft development agreement, looking at the draft permitted uses. So section 2.1 lists the permitted use for the subject property, which includes those uses permitted in the underlying zone, and apartment building consisting of a maximum of 72 dwelling units, and surface parking for the use within the development. And here are a list of requirements in the draft development agreement. So again, recreational space will be required as per the provision in the land use bylaw, and a stormwater management plan will be required before any permits being issued. And same with the design plan for water and sewer service in connection to meet the municipal specification. And there will again be 1 parking space per dwelling unit, and also private snow plowing. And in addition, the developer need to maintain all undeveloped area to be landscaped. At the same time, they are required to retain as many trees as visible on the site, and any trees that are not visible to retain will be replaced at a 1-to-1 ratio of the same species and planted on the property. There's also option for them to incorporate low impact development feature on the property. And here's the list of substantive matters in the draft development agreement, which includes the uses permitted on the property, the maximum number of dwelling units, the maximum building height, the requirements for a stormwater management plan to be submitted prior to a development permit being issued, and the requirements for the number of tree replacement. So in terms of the public engagement, we first held a public information meeting back on June 4th, where the meeting was broadcast live on municipal YouTube page, and there were around 13 members of the public attended in person, and 4 members joined online. And the deadline for comments was June 18th, and staff received 7 written comments via email and also received 1 phone call. So I have summarized general public feedback regarding the proposal, and my staff report speaks to more detail, and all correspondence received during the comment period also have attached in the staff report. So the category of feedback generally include traffic concerns around congestion, noise, and pollution, compatibility with surrounding properties. They are worried about privacy concern for nearby residents, and there's also concern for loss of existing natural green space, and concerns regarding the build form density for the height and relaxed setbacks, and there's also some concern regarding the infrastructure and services capacity and for sewage capacity and stormwater management. And looking at the process to date, we are here tonight for the planning and advisory committee for your review and the recommendation. And move next will be council first reading, which likely take place later this month, and a second reading and a public hearing after that. If the application was approved by council during the second reading, the notice of approval will be placed on paper, which will outline 14-day appeal period to the Nova Scotia Regulatory and Appeals Board. And this concludes my presentation, and I have my staff recommendation on the screen. With that, thank you for your attention, and I can take any question this committee may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Planner Hong. We talked about this briefly at a meeting. I remember it was an update or some sort of file, because this is, I know it's ringing bells for everyone. And of course, you've read the file. So there is a recommendation up there, but this is a great opportunity to ask the planner, for clarification or if there's further things that we'd like to know about this. Guido, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. For the planner, if you can go back, please, to the page where we're talking about trees and the replacement at 1:1. There we go. I didn't read the second line. Can you please read it? So the public at home has also.
Could you clarify
the last block of information for the public at home, because they say the replacement of trees might be waived.
Oh, yeah, sure. So this again is the requirement for, of course, there are 3 requirements for replace, and we also include a clause that basically said the required number of tree replacement may be waived by 50% if the development incorporates a low impact development feature, such as rain garden, permeable pavement used on the parking lots, and green roof or other feature that satisfy the municipal engineer. And essentially, this is a suggestion that I got from the municipal engineer, which they encourage some low impact development features. So that's why we kind of like encourage them to have this. And I will say the reason why we have this 50% waived is because we want to ensure that the tree replacement requirement doesn't become a barrier to the project viability. So just given the building footprint, it also provides some flexibility in the event that sufficient space for tree replacement may not be available. So we do want to have this clause added in to give the developer some flexibility.
Okay, thank you, because I never heard before that low impact development feature myself, my ignorance. So I wanted to have specification on what exactly and specifically that means on the ground, meaning in reality, what does 3 words like that for? Translate to, so rain garden means what?
That is a really good question. So basically similar to the rain barrel, where rain garden is basically a landscape feature that is designed by professionals to hold more stormwater in the event of storm. And whereas like they will providing more permeable surfaces in terms versus like unpermeable space.
So if I get it right, it's another form of basically absorbing the rainwater in case of storm for later release, like the big cisterns or tanks underneath, something
Right.
like that.
Yeah. Similar to that.
Is the green roof in the same family? What does a green roof mean?
I probably don't have this answer off the top of my head, but again, this is the suggestion from our municipal engineer. So if the developer decides to go through this route, and they will submit their plan, which we will then send to the municipal engineer. If they satisfy that, if the municipal engineer satisfy their plan, then yes, there will be a reduction for the replacement tree.
Sure, thank you. And I didn't want to put you on the spot, but I'm just curious about, new technology, new ideas, whatever it is, and what they look like in the end and what they do. Thanks so much.
Jane, go ahead, please.
Thank you. And just on a similar vein, although I'm glad to see a development agreement coming for affordable housing. It's the first time we've seen that ever, I think. But getting back to this ratio of replacing trees 1-to-1, do we know how many trees are on the property now that would be in effect taken away?
Through your chair to the committee member, I believe it is identified in their site plan, but off top of my head, I don't have the exact number. I have to look back and probably follow up afterward.
Thank you for that answer. I just happened to go to the area before the meeting, counted the trees as best I could. There are approximately 20 old growth trees, substantial trees, and to replace them 1-to-1 at 60 millimeters in, I'm assuming that's in circumference, 20 trees is not that much. On their site plan, in just the front of the development, they're showing 8, nothing in the rear at all. And so the 1-to-1 is fairly achievable because there's no trees at all in the back recreation area, which could possibly be suited to have some trees planted there. So to give them the out of reducing 20 to 10, and they've already got 8 in the front, I think we don't need to do that. They're going to have a mansard roof. So a green roof is usually a flat roof with grass or whatever, wildflowers. I don't think that would work in this situation. They're not going to have a permeable pavement for parking because they're going to be plowing it. They're not going to want to plow gravel. It's going to be paved. So I would like to see that clause 2.9D completely removed and just let them do the 1-to-1 replacement. It's not onerous on the developer. It's feasible. And there is available green space to accommodate the 1-to-1 replacement.
Thank you, Jane. KJ.
Yeah, my question, I'm curious, Could we get like a follow-up to what Jane said before my question?
Sure.
I'm curious.
A follow-up for about the tree replacement. To be honest, I'll just say something about it because I've been following this story. I remember the early conversations about the old growth trees. They're probably Victorian era linden trees. I think they're linden trees is what somebody said, a member of the public. I do recall as well, though, that this is unusual in a development agreement for, I think, planning staff to work with a developer or even a private person or whatever to make an effort to retain the trees or as best as possible, or to at least replace them. I remember that, the public certainly had some questions about the trees, people in the community, and that was sort of the discussion. So I'm heartened to see that any conversation has taken place about the tree replacement and that there is a plan, and that our planning department and the developer are thinking about the tree replacement. But in terms of like where these trees are going to be placed or how many, I think that it's too early on in this process to really decide that, because, we have a site plan sort of, the development agreement process, but things can still change, even small details about, developments and things. So it's really hard. And I think, my understanding is that's probably why this has been added, is because they're probably thinking it'll be, until they really know what they're up to, it's difficult for them to figure out where necessarily to put the trees. I'm only guessing, like from an outsider's perspective, but the comment that I would like to make about the trees and the tree replacement is that it is an unusual request that our municipality have made, and a very positive one. I think that people who were certainly concerned about potentially losing all of these trees, or some of them, was a big concern. But I don't know that staff have the detail about, the tree replacements and things like that, other than the information that sort of is provided. Is that right, Will? It's hard to judge, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's yes, thank you, Chair. Similar to what you said, it's still early in the process. And like you said, that this is a new clause for probably the first time in our development agreement. And part of the reason why is because of the concerns we have heard from the public, either during the PIM or following the written comments submitted to myself, where they have been really advocating for the preserve of the existing trees. They are pretty concerned with the existing potential removal of the mature trees. So that is why during the negotiation process with the developer, we really try to add this clause in, and reasonably the developer agree, the applicant agree with this. So we are, as a planner, I am happy to see this clause and happy to see this result.
Did you have a question, KJ?
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had a question just around the traffic impact. So I correct me if I'm wrong. I know there was something around like a traffic impacts study potentially in there, but like will there be a traffic impact assessment connected to this project? Just being for the fact that you do have like the Chester Road Highway 14 intersecting with King Street there, and when things get kind of high, that intersection can get kind of full. So just out of curiosity, has staff looked or considered looking into any of those things?
Through Chair to KJ's question, good question. So to the answer, we don't require this traffic impact study right now, just because during my consultation with our municipal traffic authority, they have not stated any concerns with the potential traffic impact, and the municipal traffic authority commented that they had no concern regarding the compatibility of the proposed development and potential traffic congestion. So that's why we didn't include this requirement in the development agreement. Yeah.
Thank you. Michelle.
Hi, just a quick question, confirm my understanding, I guess. There were 72 parking spaces and one accessible parking space.
Through your chair to committee's question. So though they are 72 parking space, including one accessible parking space. So within the 72.
Okay, that's just curious that that's a quite a low number based on the established ratios that we use. Typically, I know this being a private development, but the new standards of the province for the built environment would require 4. The CSA standards requires between 2 to 4 for that number. So one accessible parking spot for 72 may be a little bit low. I don't know what mechanism, or if there is a mechanism to bring that to the developer's attention in one way or the other, but it doesn't meet any standards that currently exist or are coming down the pipe.
Okay, I'm looking. Oh, Guido, go ahead.
Yes, I second Michelle. I'm coming from an experience down in Dartmouth. At Lancaster Drive, they develop a beautiful new building. My mother-in-law lives there. Of course, there is a one-to-one, one apartment, one parking spot. Well, there are no more visitor parking because all the parking have been taken with the second car of all the dwellers of Lancaster 4, meaning that now we don't have any more places to park when we get there because the underground parking has been filled up, and now everybody's buying up the places outside. So, you know, what I'm trying to say is I know that, that the feds pass laws and the EV mandate is failing, and there are things that are changing very quickly because sometimes we have dreams and they cannot come true. So I am just beginning putting, as in Italian we say, my hands forward and saying, let's pay attention to this parking rate, because as much as it's meeting the needs on the HIF, what is House Accelerating Fund, right? It doesn't meet reality. In Dartmouth, they don't know anymore what to do when visitor comes there, and there are no more parking because everybody has got them. It's just a very real example that I'm living on my skin, because when we go to meet mom, they are just like, and now what? So that one thing, I had one more item that I quickly want to, this is just a reflection. I don't need an answer. Yes, I followed this development early on, and I was there with a bunch of us looking at the spot. And then that night we had a meeting. And I remember the public reaction was polite and kind, but vehement, meaning that there was opposition on every front. So I had an idea. And because we are threading new territories, including the planners saying we are going for the trees and this new article and 50%, I was wondering, given the age of these trees and the history, I heard things that I never heard before, the Victorian era, could we have an arborist assessing what we are talking about? Someone specialist. I know that arborists are not cheap people. They cost a lot of money. I'm just wondering if there was a possibility to have an assessment on what do we have there and how old are they? What are we talking about? Thank you.
I see more lights on. I know that often, and we talked about this at the last meeting, that it's not our land, and it's privately owned. So at the end of the day, the developer really, or whoever owns the land, really fundamentally decides, I guess, what happens to trees. Which, as much as we'd love to save them all, but yeah, I think it's good to remember that it is a private sort of owned land. It's not municipal property as well. Yeah, Kayla. Or sorry, Councillor Leary Bent.
Kayla's fine. So through you to Planner Hong, did you state that this applied to the previous MPS, not the current MPS, because of when it was submitted? I'm just curious parking wise, because I thought the parking previously was like 1.5 spaces per dwelling unit, but I'm just pulling on memory. So
through your chair to Councillor, yes, that is correct. This application is assessed against the MPS with the formal one, but because this is a development agreement, so during the negotiation process, there's the flexibility for developer to get a lower standard compared versus the standard we found in the land use bylaw, which is 1.5, which you're correct.
Mayor Zabian, go ahead.
Yeah, through you, Chair. I just want to commend, sorry. I just want to commend staff for working with the developer on coming up with the 1-to-1 ratio on the trees and the low impact development. That's a little different than what we're traditionally used to seeing, and that's a win-win, I think, for residents who express concern over the impact of a 72 unit building in that area. The trees and the mature trees that are left will help shield it. I know there's a little bit of discussion on the positioning of the building, with the developer not wanting to go back too far because it increases the elevation of the building. So I think that's been a great job with staff and the developer working on that. The accessible parking space, I'm glad Citizen Member Bourgeois brought that up, because it's a good point. Maybe staff can touch on it before it goes to first reading, if there's any give and take on that, because that could potentially, it could be more beneficial to a developer, especially on a low or an affordable housing project with accessibility. It could mean older individuals or seniors who have mobility issues or are in a wheelchair, for example, and there could be multiple of those. I think it'd be more beneficial to developer to add those in. I know increasing parking with other developments and those discussions, the more parking you start adding, the cost goes up quite substantially. And I think they're trying to probably balance the affordability aspect and the requirements of those funding programs. So I know on paper it seems, let's change this, change that, but there's a lot more that goes into a project like this on the back end, that they're trying to meet many benchmarks that make it an affordable project as well. So just a couple comments, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ivey, go ahead.
Hey, thank you, Chair. I too agree that even at the public information meeting, the developer representatives that were on hand seemed very open to looking to do what they could do to try and accommodate some of the concerns that were raised. And there were some questions that were being asked that were way, as we've identified here, earlier in the process than could be considered. But that being said, when we look at what's in front of us here, and with credit due for the mitigation efforts, the points that I'll raise are ones that I at least have as a bit of a concern when I look at the normal regulation here for height would be 3 stories, but this building's coming in at 4 plus a basement level, and the basement level at the rear of the lot is what I think within the presentation showed it to be, and it was referred to as a 4.5 story because of the slope of the land and so on. So that's a bit concerning. It's covered in the development agreement. It's noted to be 4 stories, but 3 is what the designation normally would be within that. The density on site is another area that we look at. Normally 43 units per acre compared to 28. When you look at the parking, normally 1.5 per. So at 72, that would put you at over 100. To the comment made with regards to accessibility for certain, as it relates to parking spaces designated for that, it shouldn't go unnoticed that I believe they note in here they've also got bicycle capability within the site, which is a good thing for active transportation and for people having other modes of transportation, as we can see in our corner of the chambers here this evening. So there's a lot of things as it relates to that. I'm not sure. There's reference in here to a height of 60 feet, and I think there's then a reference of 80, and I can't connect the dots on that in the document. It's probably me just being a little bit thick in the head on it, but those are, I think, the point said. The front lot as well is being reduced from a normal regulation of 35 feet with a setback of 25. So that's a 30% shift adjustment. The height is about a 30% adjustment for what goes with the regulation. The density, same thing. There's a lot in there that and I understand this, given that you're looking that they're looking to involved in providing affordable housing, and so you need more units and you need it to be more compact. But I'm not so sure that from a nature of the neighborhood, which is single unit, multi-unit, and some commercial, those are the concerns that I'd raise and want to have a better understanding of. Thank you.
Okay, Guido.
Well, the first one, it's a brief statement. Is I want to remember to the people at home that actually at back they can come in and sit and actually you normally chair at the end, let them share their opinion. So it would be beautiful to see more people even at back sitting there. Just as a note. The other question I have for the planner is, for my information and the public, are these 72 units all affordable housing, or is a percentage?
Through share to the to Guido's question, great question. So this development includes 25% of affordable housing. So 25% of the 72 units that resulting around 19 units being affordable housing, and the rest of the units will be market rate.
Okay. Yeah, Michelle.
I just wanted to echo a couple of the comments and congratulate staff for working on this, and things like a green roof initiative. That's a game changer for here. I mean, a lot of places it's old news, but for us, this is a big thing here. And I think it's great that the developer is, is looking to explore that. I mean, because that helps with a lot of things as rainwater runoff mitigation, a lot of different things that it's kind of a neat treatment. And it's good to see us in a situation where developers are proposing that here, it's great.
Okay, so I'm hearing a lot of things from a lot of people. I'm taking notes. We have there is staff have a recommendation, well, two-part recommendation, of course. Basically, as I'm sitting here, my brain is kind of reeling. There are a couple of things that we can do, of course, as a group. We can always, one of the things that we can do is, and we did this recently with in another meeting with another file, was to make the recommendation. But then if there was something that we feel strongly about, we could add an additional recommendation. For example, I'm hearing a lot of people talking about accessible parking, and I saw a lot of heads being nodded around the room, while that was being mentioned. I also wrote down all the other things that were mentioned. Jane was talking about the tree replacement being specific, the density, the height. All of these things, are definitely things that are critical and important and of note. But, I'm asking you as a group how we want to move forward with the recommendation. I'm reluctant to do a whole bunch of add things to this and add things to that. And I know that staff, appreciate it when we're very, very organized with any sort of motions or amendments and things like that. So yeah, that's my question to you all. How are we going to move forward with this? What do you think? We all have thoughts and opinions about, little ifs, ands, and buts and with the development agreement. But essentially, our task tonight is to decide if we'd like to push this forward, of course, with a recommendation or not to council. And a number of council members are actually in the room. So we kind of have a sense of, we know how knowledgeable they'll be about this file moving forward and that these things will probably get repeated. But how do you all want to move forward? KJ. Oh, sorry, Guido. Sorry, I was looking at KJ knowing that he has a presentation to do soon, but Guido, go ahead.
A clarifying question. I am reading recommends that council give first reading and hold the public hearing. Can I understand the priority and the timeline of that? What is first, the first reading or the public hearing? Are they coming at the same time or are they two different dates?
My apology, that is a typo. It should be give first reading.
Oh.
Typically, the motions are written this way because basically you're recommending that council give first reading and then we hold a public hearing thereafter the first reading, and then the final decision will be made. It usually happens in the same night, but just immediately after public hearing will be the second reading, and that's when the final.
Okay, thank you. Because I was okay. Makes sense.
Cues it up to basically schedule that public hearing
in the same night.
So first reading will happen on its own, and then we advertise for the public hearing, and then.
Thank you. Okay, makes sense. Yes. Do we need to add any correction to that in order to read it or not?
Well, the recommendation is made, I think is fine. Yeah, we don't have to, unless, people are going to make amendments and things like that. But it's not necessary. I mean, we have two choices basically. Mayor Zabian, your light was on first.
I was just going to make the motion, Chair. If committee wants to make a second motion, suggesting council look at XYZ, it can be a separate motion after the fact, but I'll make a motion for discussion that PAC-HAC recommends that council give first reading and hold a public hearing to consider entering into a development agreement to allow a new multi-unit residential building at PID 45053220 on King Street, Windsor, in a manner substantively the same as the draft set on attachment C of the report file 25-15 to the Planning Heritage Advisory Committee report dated September 11th, 2025.
Thank you, Mayor Zabian. Would anyone like to second it for conversation? Thank you, Michelle. And before we sort of further talk about this, I'm going to limit everyone to just 2 comments. For the benefit of time. You don't have to make 2 comments, but if we get talking about this in depth, then I do have to limit our time in that sense. Not limit the quality of our conversation, but just limit the time that it takes to happen. Jane, go ahead.
Thank you. I would like to see staff go back and find out what the exact regulations are for accessible parking, and if that needs to be incorporated into the development agreement specifically.
Okay. And we could add, Jane, a motion after this if you wanted to request that staff do, I mean, you just asked that they did, but I don't know if we need a motion or anything like that, but
Yeah, just to through chair to the committee's question. Yes, definitely. I will for sure follow up with our development officer as well as our building official to find out what the accessible parking space requirement is, and to make sure that development is definitely reflected truthfully for this requirement for the accessible parking.
That's fine. That's exactly what
perfect.
was required.
Yeah, excellent. And I think all of us are curious about that information. I think that would be really helpful. Okay, Michelle.
I'll just mirror Jane's comments. We want to make sure that we're not developing policy to suit this specific, if we're going to go by the ratios, then that needs to be something that's applied to every development equally, and because it is a requirement. So I agree with Jane's idea. Let's figure out exactly what we're going to do and just apply that across the board from here on.
Perfect. Okay, KJ.
Yeah, and just from I forgot to bring it up earlier. I think moving forward, I think there needs to be a definition around affordable, and just like being very clear for like what does affordable mean in the context of the region, so that folks are very clear around what does that mean when it comes to this project.
Okay. So we have a motion in front of us. It's been made and seconded. We're going to put this to a vote. See how it goes. Okay, so the recommendation is that PAC-HAC recommends that council give first reading and hold a public hearing to consider entering into a development agreement to allow for a new multiple unit residential building at PID 45053220 on King Street, Windsor, in a manner substantively the same as the draft set out in attachment C of the report file number 25-15 to the Planning and Heritage Advisory Committee report dated September the 11th, 2025. So all those in favor, a clear show of hands, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's unanimous. Great. Perfect, everyone. I know there's a second part to this as well. If anyone would like to make this motion as well. Abe, go ahead.
PAC-HAC recommends that council require that the development agreement with Pinnacle Construction Limited be signed within 120 days from the date of final approval by council or the date that any appeals have been disposed of. Otherwise, this approval will be void and obligations arising hereunder shall be at an end.
Thank you, Mayor Zabian. Would anyone like to second this part of the process? Councilor Leary-Pinch, thank you. And all those in favor, clear show of hands. Unanimous. Thanks, everybody. So before we move on, I would like to just sort of take this opportunity to reemphasize that staff are going to look for some information about, for council and for all of us who are interested about the accessible parking, and to make sure that we're doing right by certainly any future citizens that may be moving into a potential development like this. So that's great. Okay, that's it, I guess, for that section. Is everyone comfortable with that? Okay. So we're going to move on to 8.2. Yeah, presentation. So KJ is going to talk to us about, it's called a Historic Downtown Revitalization Framework for Windsor. And the information is in your package. It's a lot of information, beautiful information, like lots of I wanted it in book form so I could like read it in a book. But yeah, so I'm going to hand it over to KJ. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I do apologize for not being here the last meeting. 2 years and I finally got COVID. Not a fun thing. But I'm here now. And I did not have a fancy presentation to show you folks on the screen, but hopefully folks have had a lot of time to basically go through the document provided, as well as providing just a little bit of context of like the deeper down of like the academic research there, but then also just like the lived experience of municipalities that have gone through similar programs as we have. And just so like for the background, there has been a conversation since the ending of COVID around what is the future of downtowns and how does downtowns play a role in regional economic development across the country. And in the context of Nova Scotia, Halifax has been doing a very good job of trying to figure out how do you, have a downtown core and connect it to other communities around their municipality. But when you look outside of HRM, conversations are now bubbling around what does it actually look like to utilize the development that's happening within our province, and how we can specialize and define how our towns and communities can be different from an economic development standpoint, but then also looking at preserving the unique heritage of it. And so the premise around this kind of like thought exercise stemmed from just my time just being a resident of the downtown core, and then just my work experience being able to travel around different municipalities throughout the province, and really seeing the uniqueness that can actually spark by figuring out ways of revitalizing our downtowns, but then also connecting them to other downtowns within our regions. So I know in the report, like staff did allude to the fact that there is a limited capacity, and I would agree. One thing that the 2 case studies that I have provided for the committee to look at was the opportunity of redefining municipal governance that these 2 municipalities did by allowing their business leaders, allowing community champions to come together to co-create and hold the weight of this type of structure. And so if folks have had the chance to look at Bonavista, Bonavista is in Newfoundland. And if you're not familiar with Newfoundland, since the memorandum, a lot of our rural municipalities within Newfoundland have had to ask the question, like, what is the future with the main economic driver leaving the area? And so Bonavista has answered that question by utilizing its historic assets as a way to attract people to their region and be a space for arts and culture, as well as building up a new industry around historic trades and historic preservation that has now had runoff effects that has allowed them to actually build a revitalization company that sole purpose is to buy and acquire buildings within their community to ensure that, one, the ownership stays within their area, but then also showcases ways of bringing capital into the space. And then the other case study that I provided was Collingwood, which is in Ontario, just an hour outside of Toronto. And their approach was seeing as they saw the development that was happening in Toronto, similar to what we're seeing now. There is a lot of development happening to Halifax, and their pitch was, how can we utilize the development and the investments that's happening in Toronto and try to bring it to their community by developing a development thesis around what would the next 20 years looks like. And the municipality, did all of their due diligence to create the I guess say the playground for this conversation to had, but it was very much community led and community driven, whether that's the business side as well as the residential side. So that's kind of the high level nitty gritty of the report here. If folks want to have an in-depth conversation, we could have that conversation, but there's a lot of information there, and I did not know the process of which how to deliver things out. So this is how I'm used to delivering things. So just wanted to leave that there.
Awesome. Thank you. I've been thinking about this a lot. Like I read it 2 months ago, and then I've been thinking about it. I know that one of the things that I think that's really fascinating about our municipality that's very different from other places is that we're still kind of new. So I live in Hansport, and I remember going to all those meetings where we unincorporated and our community joined West Hants. And I know that Windsor went through the same process. And so when I think of our region, I think for people who live in West Hants, it's a relatively new thing for all of us to sort of embrace, and not embrace, but sort of, think of all of us together as one thing, because it is new. It's only been a couple of years, really. And, Mayor Zabian can attest to this, that the work, has been to sort of to create this one region. We went through a branding process, which was wonderful. I got to participate in that, which I really, really loved. So when I was reading this information and looking at these case studies, of course, you're thinking about where you live. The thing that kept coming back to me, was that we're still kind of getting our feet under us as a new region. And that's exciting because that means that anything's possible. But the other thing that came to mind was, and I wanted to mention this to you, KJ, and to the whole group, because I think it's important. The community development department with the municipality are incredible. I know I shouldn't be up here giving opinions, but if you've worked with them on projects, they're so effective. And our municipality also has a number of other groups, and I made a short list of these groups that work on initiatives for the good of everyone. So the Community Development Department with this municipality, number one. The CBDC, the Valley Wren, the Avalon Chamber of Commerce, the Windsor Rotary, and the Windsor Township Business Association as well. HABA is up and coming in Hansport. We have our next meeting next week. And the reason I mention these groups is because, and Nova Scotia Works in the downtown mall, is because I know that just recently these groups have been sending a representative once a month to a meeting. So they've just started to have monthly meetings. It often includes our MLA. Melissa often attends. So they're really exciting, dynamic meetings that, like I said, because it is such a new thing, we have these 7 entities now just sort of joining forces to try to propel things forward. So that's really exciting. And I wanted to let you know that because I know that this group that meets occasionally at Walker's Restaurant or whatever, people can do presentations and they continue conversation based on that. So, because when I was reading the information and thinking about the presentation, the thing that comes to my mind is I don't know enough about civics to know what it is that we can ask of people or ask of staff. Like my experience is that a lot of initiatives that happen in West Hants happen because of either volunteers or not-for-profits or societies, often with the support of our municipality. And that's sort of how things get going. And I do know that when staff say that that there is limited capacity. You know, we're all talking about money and time. Those are the things that people are always sort of talking about. And if you watched, you know, if you watch council meetings, you know that finances are something that are really, really scrutinized, and they should be in our municipality as people make those responsible decisions. So yeah, I don't mean to hog the microphone. I loved reading the information, KJ. I really did. I feel just from having seen some of these things and seeing some action that's starting to take place that I'm not sure that our planning department really have a role necessarily to play in this process, but our community development department certainly. And I know Vanessa very well, and I know that she's engaged in a number of things already that hit a lot of these marks and things. But in terms of being a region, we are still kind of new. And yeah. Anyway, Mayor Zabian, you go ahead. You know better than anyone.
Well, no, you hit all the top points there, Chair Carr. Also, the VBLI Business Valley Business Leaders Initiative. They're very active, mainly developers and stuff, but they're quite an intelligent group of individuals who do a lot of good work. I think the report's pretty good. I have family in Collingwood, so very familiar with that, and I've looked at Bonavista multiple times. They're good examples. I have to agree on the capacity of staff, regardless of department. I think the municipality has already done its share on helping these groups form and create and support already. I see this more of a Windsor Township type initiative on my end, Chair. Again, business leaders and property owners looking to create even more of a dynamic within the community. There's you reference consolidation from pre-2020 or pre-consolidation, and now what a shift in the downtown core, really. Both Hansport and Windsor, and I believe there's a group in Brooklyn who are starting to get together to do something out there as well. So I think the work is already being done, and it's very noticeable on the street. Just recently, I think today's Thursday, so 2 days ago, council has approved an AT strategy, which is looking at walkability, all non-motorized means to get around different communities. Council also approved a lot of sidewalk work, up to almost close to $500,000 on improving the walkability of the downtown core. So it's nice to highlight what it's good to have a dream. Like you got to have a dream. You got to know where you want to go, and this is the dream of wanting to know where you want to get and create an awesome, incredible space and do more with the downtown core. I think the groups already exist, and I remember back in 2020 when we were through the consolidation process. I remember doing an interview with our consultants at the time. I go, honestly, government just has to get in the way and stop wanting to be involved and let the business owners and let those individuals who have the ideas just here, spread your wings and go. They're the ones who actually do the change. So just a couple comments. Report's great. Citizen member Kanye Steed, Collingwood's beautiful. Great job all around.
I remember I was here 2 years ago and I sat back there with Adrian Wood and I watched the municipal council further invest in the Windsor Township Business Association by hiring a coordinator and really like making that a municipal commitment. I remember Community of Hansport, we're a little jealous because we don't have our group organized yet, but we're getting our stuff together soon enough. But the work that the Windsor Township Business Association has done has really, in my opinion, been quite astronomical. And one of the I've heard two people use this word other than me that they felt like downtown Windsor, it's had a bit of a renaissance. And I love that word. Yeah, it really has changed a lot for all of us in the know. And when you look ahead to a weekend like this weekend coming up, for example, the Garlic Fest, which will bring in thousands and thousands of people to downtown Windsor, that's astonishing, really. And again, that is a combination of our community development department, and then in addition, a number of local people. I also have to say, while we're kind of talking about it, that I also really appreciate our municipalities sort of energy and reinvestment in our community halls, because all of our communities have halls, or pretty much most of our communities have halls, and some of them have been, less active than they have been in the past. But in recent years, community members have really taken on the initiative, and then in turn are able to sort of receive some support from our municipality. So yeah, I'm of the opinion that if you want something, then build it or make it. But yeah, we have two schools of thought about things. It's like my brother always says you can either work for it or you can pay for it. And I think that our municipality, we're full of people who are ready to work for it, because maybe we can't pay for it quite yet, but we'll get there. But yeah. So questions or comments? Go ahead, please, Guido.
Thank you, Chair. I want to applaud to the work of KJ. His hitting it on the head. We definitely need a vital and even more business present and totally revitalized downtown. My vision is to see every window facing our main street. What's called our main street, by the way? I forget. I'm too new here. What's the name?
Garish Street.
Garish Street. Like, how could I, right? I would love to see I could, because I'm 5 years old to Windsor. I would like to see every window there becoming a business. And we know what's going to happen to Windsor. We'll have a huge development. This is going to become the second Sackville. And meaning that is going to be, when HRM has a limit in growth, this is the expansion. And also, interestingly, I have checked weather for the last 5 years, because I am usually extremely cold. And I noticed that I live in LA, I live in Vancouver, I am Italian, guess. But I have noticed with pleasure that we are always 1-2 degrees above anything else. From Dartmouth to Chester, forget Briar Island, that is very cold. But even going to Annapolis, it's interesting how Windsor is having a very nice, quiet pocket of a weather that is usually 1-2 degrees above the average. Is quite something. So we are in the middle, and that is a very critical position. I do believe that KJ work is great, because if we go in the direction of business, private business, we are going in the right direction. And even big franchise, we are seeing the flourishing of franchises. It's great. Every business, we need to give that to the people that come to live in these apartments and flats and new spaces. So fantastic work. Thank you.
Thank you, Guido. Jane, go ahead, please.
Thank you. I'd like to thank KJ for his report. I probably saw it a couple of months before you, and shared with KJ some feedback. And I think the groups that Tim mentioned are the ones that need to be approached, and probably with your report to pinpoint your focus with talking with them exactly where you want to go. But one point I'd like to make is that you asked staff a number of questions to be accomplished, and I shared this with you as well, that you asked for them to look into funding. I think if you go to a group meeting with that answer already prepared, then you'll be, sort of grabbed by the wrist and taken along quite quickly, because those are the answers that they're going to want to know. How do we get funding for this, and how do we get funding for that? But KJ, I think you've got a lot to offer, and don't stop bringing these kind of reports to us. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, you go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, just this is really good feedback, and basically what I'm probably going to do now is just go find the money and just go meet with these groups, and then we could just come back. Yeah. So this is really a good conversation to have. Yeah, just want to let that know and let people know out there that, I know where money is. So let's chat.
And I can help connect you with all of those groups. And I know their next meeting will happen this month, like later in September, probably the third week, and I can check in with that group and let you know for sure. Michelle.
Yeah, I agree. KJ, that was a great report. As I was telling him earlier, we have, our family has friends that actually live in Bonavista, and it's transformative what they've done there. It's amazing. As Mayor Zabian said, it's certainly a dream we'd like to dream, and I think it's worthwhile. I guess what I just wanted to follow up on is in my role as chair of the Accessibility Advisory Committee, I had an opportunity to sit in on a recreation providers meeting up at Clifton this week, put on by Community Development, and I had no idea there were that many groups. The room was full to capacity, and really staff was acting more as a collector and gatherer of people. And then the group just sort of did its own thing. And I see that sort of as, if the municipality has a role to play, is sort of as that we'll put the right people together and let them do their thing, because the collaborations that came out of an hour and a half meeting there was, that's people are connecting now and working together on things to try to bring one sport up where it may be flagging in attendance and things like that. So some really great creative people, and I'm pretty sure that same, we've been downtown informally talking to people about accessibility just on a very informal basis, and the willingness of the businesses we've spoken to step up is inspirational. So I don't see that changing in what KJ envisions either.
Guido, go ahead.
Sure. I wanted to mention one thing that I wasn't sure I read or noticed in the report for KJ. It's not a suggestion, it's an idea I just floated here, even for staff. And it says, for many years I've been a photographer and I work with graphic designers. So I enormously appreciate the meaning of a meme like West End's "Something Inspiring Awaits" in every color that is there, right? It's enormous. A graphic symbol, a meme, as they call it today, from the word mimetic, is a fundamental thing. What humans perceive as beauty usually is symmetry. And usually what is not perceived as beauty is asymmetry. It's interesting concepts. And for the last few years, in my other field of expertise, coaching and trauma, I have studied and educated and taught applied psychology. What I'm trying to say is that it would be interesting to begin to develop patterns, meaning recognizable patterns, color schemes, shapes that either connect us to the clockwork maker, whatever, on King Street, or they connect us to the other place, the other famous. We have beautiful homes here, beautiful homes. We have a history that is old as Canada. All right. Either is it Acadian, or is Brit, or is this, or is that. So can we begin thinking in terms of architecture? Can we begin thinking in terms of patterns, memes, color, symbols that unify and makes downtown spectacular? And that is when we begin to see the balance and the repetition of patterns, and they are accepted and they are welcome because they make it beautiful. It's just a suggestion. I leave it here. I'm not an architect. I wouldn't know where to begin with that, but I am certain that someone might help us enormously to develop those patterns and make it for people to go like, hey, have you been to Windsor lately? No. Oh God, you gotta go. You gotta be there, right? So something like that. Thank you.
One thing you might like to know, Guido, about our branding, West Hants, Something Inspiring Awaits. This, I was there for all of this. The sun that you mentioned about the weather is nicer here. That's a big part of the reason that the sun is the logo. The colors are also representative. And I will also say, in addition, that our community development department are in a process of, the branding is still being rolled out. So large images, for example, the highway signs apparently are sort of on the way, and there is signage for communities. The Hantsport has beautiful new signs at the entrances to all of town, with the little brand on it and stuff. So the consistency with the brand is something that they're still working on, and I know that it's a process that it was something post amalgamation that was promised. So you will see branding, and not architecture, but branding, sort of more widespread throughout our 52 communities, I think.
Beautiful, Chair. Thank you for updating me on that. I didn't know it, so I'm glad I perceived it in the meme and on the scan in the weather. And yes, I like to see that uniformity, that patterning repeated in everything we do, that would be kind of perfection for revitalizing the historic level of this town. Thank you so much.
Councillor Ivy.
Yeah, just a comment very briefly is that also really appreciate the work of the report and the inspiration that comes out of that in looking at other communities that had a challenge in front of them that they took on and brought about change within their community in a way that made a significant difference for them. And I think we are seeing the beginning, the renaissance of that same thing taking place here. Yeah, let's get the really quiet mic. But to say that that comes to creating and having an environment here that facilitates that to take place in the first place amongst the organizations, which I think is really important. And then also, as was identified, that funding to facilitate that too. And I know that we, the council level are involved in some of the funding for those organizations, but something specific or focused like this that works to get, as Guido has said, the thematic symbolism or that continuity that flows throughout, which is running with the branding that we have for the municipality that exists through other architectural designs we have, is really important. And, you know, if you look around, you can see there is that. I was talking with my partner the other day about there's that peaked roof that appears at the top of the old ice rink, which is almost like that blockhouse roof. There's the blockhouse with its roof. There's the top of the old banker building, which is now Atlantica Law, out at the Irving. Like those exist throughout the community, and that, you know, by intent or by happenstance, but there's things like that that just flow. And, you know, so it's to figure out what those are. And I think that's all part of what KJ talks about here and getting into, you know, an urban planning standpoint as to how we do that here. Hats off for what you have done there. And I certainly look to see what comes of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. I also want to thank you. So I know KJ, we live in now the same community pretty much. And we've worked together on a couple of things. And yeah, I love your energy because I sense it like in others, you know, in our region as well. And I know that there's this big collective of us that really want things to happen and you know, in exciting ways and all that stuff. And I know that those people exist. So I'm going to make an effort to hook you up with all of them and we'll make this happen for sure. Make things happen. I know that I think there were you did have recommendations in your report, but did you want to just sort of, yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we'll chat and we'll hook you up. Okay. Are you guys comfortable moving on? Good. Okay. So we're going to move on to business arising from the minutes. So this is our committee Q&A dashboard. There's one item that's been like harassing this committee forever. And I've been here for like 2.5 years and it just keeps coming up, and it came up, I think in our April meeting or something like that. And then, you know, there's a council has seen it. So it is the item about, and I don't have it on my screen here. Sorry. You go ahead.
It says new ideas for public information meeting notification methods, but I think the larger topic was public engagement and how we notify the public about engagement opportunities and things like that.
Thank you. So yeah, we've been, you know, around and around and around. I feel like we've been around and around this. I know Jane and I we've been in meetings where this has been talked about a lot. You know, Guido, you remember talking, everyone here remembers talking about it. I remember talking about it 2 years ago. In our most recent meeting, when we did talk about this, we had a robust conversation about whether or not to increase limits or the size of signs and all this stuff. We also talked about, you know, the positives and negatives for each. I know you can all remember that and I won't repeat them. But one of the things that I remember from our most previous meeting was that, you know, the discussion that we had been sent on to council and nothing really had been done with it for whatever reason. So we're still sort of at the status quo with the notifications and all that stuff. Additionally, though, I would like to say that, you know, I noticed that when Planner Hong was doing his presentation, that there was great engagement from the public, letters and things like that. I know that more people have been coming in. So staff contacted me and asked about this. item because I think that really as a group we can just decide, like, are we going to keep talking about this? Is my question to you, or basically, does anyone in the time since we last discussed this have an idea for this group that might get further than any of the previous ideas, or not? At the moment, it's sort of still status quo. Nothing has changed. No recommendations or anything like that have been really put forward and acted on. But yeah, this is like my 5th time talking about this. These notification things. Guido, you go ahead, and then
Thank you, Chair. Well, as I might remember, yes, I agree. It's been going on quite a while, this thing. Correct me if I'm wrong, anyone. I seemed last time I was sitting there when we talked about this on the other end, and it seemed like I was kind of understanding that it was a matter in the hands of council. So more than I have a question, I would love to know from council if it's possible. Did council go anywhere from there with this in terms of measurements, feet, meters, kilometers, whatever? Because I remember I was kind of sad being told, yeah, it's nice that you talk about that. Yeah, it would be nice, but and it was dead in the water in council. What happened in council? Thank you.
So, Kayla, go ahead.
That was actually why my light was on. So I was just going to give some details. So we did have a pretty fulsome discussion, as I recall, at council. There was a lot of ideas discussed and put forwards, but then there were, particular concerns with each of those potential new strategies that were valid. Financial burden being a large one of those, and staff time, availability, workload also being a large portion in that. And so I think from my perspective, and I mean, we have other counselors here in the room and the mayor, that we had kind of decided at that point that we didn't really have a good new suggestion that was feasible. And so therefore there wasn't anything to move forwards from a council perspective, but the discussion was had. Perhaps Councillor Ivey or the mayor remember that differently, but that's how I recall it.
Thank you. Yeah, Mayor Zabian.
Yeah, I don't think I'd go as far as say no new or good suggestions were present. I think we've seen a large uptick in public participation in DAs and land rezonings, and I know I was part of 2016 where we did less, 2020 where we did more, and today where we still do more. And you'll always hear the odd comment, well, I didn't get the notice. Well, I don't think you're going to avoid that. But the uptick in the activity of residents getting involved in these applications and these public hearings and these public info sessions, I think it's quite substantial from 2016 to now. If people have an interest in an item, they'll speak up. If there's no interest, they just won't speak up. I've had the conversation with many people, and that's what it always comes down to, is not hearing because we're content with it, for example. And so you're not going to hear on every item. You're going to hear a very large amount from other items. I think we were over capacity. I think we were over our fire limit in here during the windmill discussions. And in chickens a couple of years back, marijuana, even a little bit further back. And then some developments, I think the public info session for the one we discussed tonight, 15 to 20 people were at that one. Others, you'll have 0. Just when there's an interest, there's an interest. I don't increasing a limit is not going to get more interest. Putting bigger signages probably won't get more interest. It's just going to increase costs. And again, not a developer by any means, but every dollar added is another dollar on the bottom line, and it's like an equation. It just starts going out of whack. But just a couple of thoughts on my end.
Councillor Ivey.
Yeah, I think the mayor and Councillor Pinch spoke well on the summation of what's taken place. It's interesting when I go back to research things unrelated to this, but just generally, I find myself back in old sets of minutes, and I was back a couple of years ago, and sure enough, what came up but was public participation in the same agenda. You know, you're scrolling through the pages and go, oh look, there that is. So it just there are diminishing returns to advertising. There, you can get it to a certain point, at which point in time you're not going to do any better. To the comments just shared. And there are some issues where people just aren't going to show up. We've had them here when we, host a PIM, and sometimes there's just, the chair, the staff, and no one. And if you think back to, there's been that peaks and valleys with it. And so if what's working now, but it just means it's evolutionary, to the mayor's comments, that it's progressed and evolved over time. And as long as we keep remembering, I'm going to just read two sentences here, if I can, that came out of KJ's document that I meant to touch on, because I think it's so important, is that Canadian planning frameworks increasingly emphasize public participation as a cornerstone of effective policy. And so that's hearing from the people that we're here to serve is most important. And further, it says that this is reinforced in the Canadian Institute of Planners Statement of Values, which stresses that planning should be participatory, inclusive, and reflective of local values. And then it leads into the community revitalization. And so it's just, we're in the right ballpark, and it's something may surface in another week, a month, a year that would make a difference. But, right now the signs are going up, the posts are online. Tonight, with having to cancel something, they couldn't pull it from the newspaper. So there's people that would have read that, there's like we're covering the main media. It'd be nice if we got more people out for everything, but everything doesn't mean something to everybody. So I don't know that it disappears, that we've dealt with it, but somebody may think in 6 months to bring it back up again if there's something that's new or different from what we've already done.
Jane.
Thank you. Now, this is not really on the topic, but the issue of cost was just mentioned. So I have a question, and staff may not be able to answer it tonight, so maybe it'll go on this list. But one of the first speeches that the Prime Minister made was, he said that development agreement costs were going to be cut by 50%. So I wonder if you know the mechanics of how that's going to happen and how soon that's going to happen.
Have you guys heard anything federally? No, nothing yet. No. Yeah.
It's a good question. I was involved in a meeting with two federal ministers about 3 weeks ago, and we had 5 municipalities in here actually. And one of the CAOs from one of the municipalities said, my former unit, we applied for the funding, or the funding that was announced. 11 years later, that unit still has to receive that funding. So politicians, as you go up the ladder from municipal, provincial, federal, they announce lots of great funding opportunities, but they're usually very slow to trickle down, and it could go well beyond a term and get lost with the other items that pop up from day to day that, I'll be careful how I say this next point. It's the positive PR that's mainly looked after, and once they get it, then kind of gets forgotten sometimes. So I didn't hear that announcement myself, but it could be quite a while. I know through the housing accelerator, we received that money, and the application fees or permit fees were removed, and it helped that way instantaneously. But that wasn't a wow or a point winner for any federal politician by any means. So it'd be nice, but
Councillor Leary Pinch.
Yeah, I was just going to follow up to Councillor Ivy's comments about, potentially removing it at this point, and it could come back in the future. I know I strongly advocated when we had the discussion for trying to do them within the communities for which the developments would be taking place. But there were logistic and financial and staff concerns as to why that wasn't really feasible at this time. So I guess to clarify my words, it wasn't about good options. It was about actionable options that produced equivalent results for the changes that would need to be made. And there just weren't any at this time. So if something comes forward in the future, fantastic. But that way, maybe it doesn't kind of stay as a running tab for staff.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I want to thank council all present here for having given us very precise answers on that topic, and thank you, Chair, for bringing it back. I almost forget it, despite I was one that was speaking a lot about it. And thank you, Councillor Ivey, for bringing forward what makes the fabric of Canadian and the public involvement, right? That is fundamental. And I wouldn't know what to do with King Street if I didn't have that night 20 people on that chairs, right? On those chairs and saying their opinions about the linden trees and everything. So that is fundamental. You know, just coming with my own single ideas is cute and nice, but it's always when we represent a number of people that we do the right thing. In that regard, I have a memory. I came to Windsor, didn't know a thing about it, but I was receiving a newsletter. There was a page sign up on the website of West End, and I put my email there, and for several months I received updates of everything. It was fantastic, phenomenal. So at a certain point, poof, disappeared. Maybe COVID went away, and with COVID went away, I don't know, perhaps the person that was writing the newsletter in the municipality got COVID and whatever. But what I'm saying is, I spoke with the CAO, aside, jokes aside, and I asked Mark, which is a fantastic CAO and it's easy to reach and ask things and do things with. And he said that it is up to council to hire someone to do whatever, call it social media, PR, communication, information, mass, blah, 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 right? Whatever name you give it to that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's a gibberish for mass, blah, blah, blah. I think that was very effective. It was keeping me up to date when I wasn't yet in any committee, in anything. Could we, as a council, and again, that I leave it to council, I can not say anything about it, have someone that brings back to life and have the time to do the newsletter to everyone that puts their email in that recipient. And I see a hand up. Ooh, okay, thank you. I'm done.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm on the comms team and we discontinued that because we're all doing that off the side of our desks and no one had any time to keep up with it. So I apologize. I know it was very useful, but we just didn't have any time to keep up with it. We'd like to, but we can't right now.
I know that, one of the things I enjoy is the mayor's updates. And I know that our elected councilors also provide updates in council meetings and things like that. Like, I feel quite informed, but I also seek information. So, when I open the Valley Journal Register, or whatever it's called, I know what that notification, what type of notification that is, because it's been consistent. Staff have been wonderful about, like, you see those notifications in the paper, you know what it is, you choose to read it or not. And also, to anyone watching, what I would say in addition is that, if you're a West Hants resident, there's a plethora of opportunities to participate in all of these conversations, whether it be in this room, or I know our counselors make themselves very accessible. The staff make themselves very accessible. I always see their information is always shared on the screen. Get in touch, get in touch, get in touch. I'm kind of bringing it back to this notification thing again that we're talking about. I do remember that in our last meeting, someone around the table, the quote was that there was possibly at the moment no appetite for this because things like, why fix something that isn't necessarily broken? And I agree with you, Mayor Zabian. The uptick in participation seems really, really measurable in a lot of ways. And a lot of that too is because I feel like our counselors are very engaged with their districts, so that brings people in and they're just further informed. I feel very informed as a West Hants resident, but I understand that some people don't always get all the information. But yeah, Mayor Zabian, you go ahead.
Yeah, we do quite a few different things. Councilor Larry Pinch just reminded me on the, what's it called? What's happening, or calendar events, or that goes out every month. We have a text message system for community development and recreation that goes out. I get the odd text message probably 2 or 3 times a week. This and this are happening. You can sign up. I think it's online. You just text your number in or something, and it automatically does it. We had a summer student back in 2018 who created an app. It's the waste app, and you sign up to that, and it just gives you that little reminder the day before your zone is picked up. I get mine every Tuesday nights, usually in council, and you hear my phone ding. That's telling me tomorrow's compost day. I'm like, oh, something to remember when I get home. So they're quite effective, and we do them now. We could probably do more. There could be a planning aspect of things that one goes out when an application is happening, for example, and everybody who's signed up on it would get a text message. But definitely a good conversation for council to add more of this. I think it's effective on the other end of what we actually do now. So,
Michelle.
Yeah, I guess I'd echo Mayor Zabian's comments that Waste App is my second most favorite app on my phone. Otherwise, I'd be struggling to figure out what goes out on Wednesdays. So whoever created that, thank you. In more serious note, I guess in my own personal experience, I don't speaking particularly to notification of public meetings and development agreements. I think what West Hants does is really pretty much on par with what everyone else does. Personally, certainly my personal professional experience, we're pretty much mirroring the process of the unnamed municipality that I worked at before. But we could possibly consult the Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities to see if what they do, but in my personal experience, I don't think we're particularly deficient in one way or the other. One of the things I will say, which the obvious thing, is a lot of what's taken for communication is actually trying to tamp down misinformation that circulates around. And those two, communicating officially and fighting fires of misinformation, they're almost two different. You could have somebody dedicated to that second thing full time and never stay on top of it.
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead, Guido.
Well, I want to thank Chair, thank you, Chair. I want to thank the mayor for letting me know about the first the app and the text messages. I am a text message not addict, but I love receiving text message about everything. It's the best way to keep me up to date. I will definitely catch up to it. My next thought, of course, as a philosopher, would be, okay, why was I not knowing about that? Maybe just my ignorance. And my next question would be, how can we make that super available to everybody and communicate and say, hey, you have this great text and you can just click yes and say yes, no, stop, give me more, whatever. And but I will definitely go and get all the text possible from the West End. Thank you.
KJ, go ahead.
Yeah, wonderful conversation, everyone. I will just warn that right now we do risk the potential, like as my colleague here said, around the misinformation, because there is a limit in the communication. There is what I've seen. There is a void growing in the municipality. I think, we are very involved and we're very keen to see what's happening, but not everyone is that necessarily involved, which, to each his own. I'm not here to debate that conversation. But there is a risk to the municipality and a liability around the misinformation and our inability to not think outside the box of figuring out new ways of communicating information that is critical to the municipality. Because what we're seeing now is people are coming up with ideas and it is going rampant. And I think if capacity and financing is the main issue, and there are numerous, like I work with multiple municipalities throughout the province, and this conversation, like the conversation I say we need to do something about community engagement, the conversation back come to me saying that, oh, it's the financial things. Then I think there needs to be a larger conversation with our municipal units around what does that leadership look like, whether it's working with municipal affairs around providing subsidies to the municipalities so that they're able to fund or finance ways of getting the information out. Like we're seeing a hollowing out of information within our regions, especially in rural communities. And it is going to be a risk. It's going to be the Achilles heels of this, of the new municipal structure as municipalities amalgamate into regions.
Information is tricky. Like I know people complain all the time about not hearing about things and not knowing, and then on the flip side, there is, and I think it's been alluded to, having to deal with the people who maybe are engaged in a way that we wouldn't prefer, you know. I'm gonna draw us back to the main point again, and I know there's still a couple of lights on and things, but just to bring us back to the thing that we were talking about, just to sort of like to close it, I guess, in a sense. What I'm gathering from the group is that, council spoke about this and all this stuff. If in future, something comes up, maybe if there's a big outcry from the public, or if perhaps the newspaper goes out of business or whatever, and we need to think of new ways to communicate with the public or to enhance those ways, then we can revisit this for sure. And we can always make recommendations to council about that, based on need and want from this committee and our communities. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Quickly, two things. First one, when I was speaking about communication in the newsletter, I don't want to be misunderstood. I wasn't making a fault to the staff. The staff is doing a fantastic job. And so no problem in that direction. It simply stopped because it stopped. And the second thing is I philosophically agree with my colleague KJ in terms of what can we do to find new ways, not the old ways, new ways, that's what he said, for making communication happening faster, better, wider, broader, longer, et cetera, and all the adverbs or adjectives. So I am interested in hearing from KJ ideas in regard and see if anything, because that could be also the carrier for the revitalization of downtown, historical, blah, blah, blah. Thank you.
Okay, great. So staff, I think that, in terms of like this file, I guess it's not really a file, this sort of, I don't know, thing that's been hanging around for a while. I think what I'm hearing from the group is that for now, we'll just maintain status quo. And then if something comes up in future, then we'll certainly look into it for sure. Okay, folks, we're going to move on to business arising from the public information meetings, which were held on September 23rd. So there are two of these. One is in Upper Burlington, and Will maybe wants to say a few things about that.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I will take both on behalf of Alex for the second application as well. So the first is the rezoning for the PID number 45285103 on Old Walton Road in the Upper Burlington area. And this application was a rezoning request submitted by Mark Phillips, the CAO, to rezone this municipal surplus land to provide an opportunity to the Hants Shore Child Care Association to explore establishing a licensed childcare facility. So staff held a public information meeting on September 3rd, and there were 3 members of the public provided comments during the meeting.
Great. Does anyone have a question about this one? This is the community hall in Burlington. Nope. Okay, next one.
Okay, so this is Alex's application. This is also a rezoning that requests to allow the subdivision and the development of the subject property on Highway 14 as to develop more single unit residences. And the public information meeting for this application was also held on the same night of September 3rd. And there were there were no public members provide comment during the meeting.
Thank you. Any questions about these? No, pretty straightforward, I think. So there are 5 file updates. We're going to move along to those, and we won't go through them all, but I'll give you an opportunity if anyone had a question about any of these 5 things, if you wanted to sort of seek some clarification or anything. I'll give you a minute to look at them. Just take a second. So it's 411 King Street, Bear Lake Wind Farm revised, Highway 14, another Highway 14 Windsor Forks, Upper Burlington, and Upper Water Street. Those were the 5. And I know that you have the update in your package anyway. Okay, we're going to move on to the building and development activity reports. So there are 2 reports. You have your August and your September reports. Does anyone I have a question about the reports, if I could ask, and I bet I'm not the only one. I have a question about the September report, and I'm just curious. And I know we often ask, like, oh, what is that? What is that? And I guess I'm asking, what is that? I'm just curious about the 3 industrial, whatchamacallits, and basically I'm curious about the $45 million and where that comes from.
Through you, Chair. I would have to go back and confirm, but I'm making the assumption. So the Benjamin Mills Wind Farm recently reached out that they are starting their phase 2, I believe, which consists of 3 wind turbines. And I believe they anticipate construction this fall. So I can confirm that, but I think that's where those numbers come from, and hence the large value there associated with it.
I imagined it was related to that, but I know often people ask, and I thought, I'll just ask for everybody. Okay, does anyone else have any questions about those 2 reports that staff provided? No? So to my knowledge, we didn't receive any notices from any adjacent municipal units, and I still think we should write a bunch of letters and keep them in their meetings. But and no one is here. I mean, we have 2 counselors at the back if they'd like to approach a microphone, and no questions, nothing like that, nothing you want to say. You can vent if you want. So our next meeting date is October the 9th, 2025. Before we adjourn, I also want to take a moment to thank member Paul Beasley, who's is not able to continue with our committee due to time and things like that. And I know I received an email, and I don't know if you all did about that, but I just wanted to thank him personally. And I mean, if you grew up in this area, if you're from here, you know, Paul's been serving our area for his whole life. So we appreciate the time that he took to spend with us and to help us work through a lot of things. And his expertise was certainly appreciated. So I just want to thank him personally. And I also want to mention that a number of committees with the municipality are seeking members of the public to join, including ours. We have 1 vacancy now. So if you're interested in what you just saw or things like this, then please apply with the municipality, and you can find that information on the website. So I will seek a motion to adjourn from someone. Guido, thank you.
I adjourn.
Yay. And it is 7:47. Thank you.